Alright, so this latest chapter of Black Clover was nothing short of epic, which is to be expected considering how hyped the previous one stood to be, as Asta defended his vice captain after having severed one of the devil's hands pretty much immediately. And in seeing this, Knot was thoroughly convinced that he was right about the kid all along, that he would be the decisive figure to give them the win. And as such, he'd urge Asta to leave him behind and go deal with the Dark Triad, a notion Asta was far from willing to accept. He'd erase all the magic, afflicting Knot with a swift move of his sword and tell him just how grateful he is to have been made stronger by his tutelage, that rather than foregoing his life, that Knot should live to witness the strength that he has made possible. Knot would then think of his brother, and although they were certainly different, both he and Asta were in fact good people. Now at this point, Asta was simply running out of time when it came to this form, and so he needed to handle things as quickly as possible. But boy, oh boy, that damage that he had dealt to these devils was enough to drive them insane with excitement. I mean, you have to realize that for devils, the only entertainment that is to be had in the underworld is the subjugation and beating of others. And so for beings of such power and regard, an actual struggle is beyond a rarity. It's virtually non-existent. And so they were simply elated. But with this being the case, I have to wonder why they were so hesitant to step on Lucifero's toes. Perhaps he is the strongest devil there is, but even still, death doesn't seem to be a concern of theirs, so why the hesitation? But these two weren't the only ones excited, as Libe recognized them immediately. Lilith and Nama, both being names of biblical demons, Lilith in particular being the more famous of the two in regards to pop culture. From there, the battle would commence as Asta would negate their many attacks despite being unable to land a blow of his own immediately. That is until he drew his third sword, the Demon Destroyer. And in an instant, all their surrounding magics were no more. They were dumbfounded, and before they knew it, Asta had cleaved into one of them right down the middle. Now, I love the designation of the swords in order all of a sudden, as it kind of reminds me of Luffy with the various gears, which is more than enough to catch my interest. But yeah, Asta plays no games. He did the damn thing. He bodied a devil of the highest order in less than a minute without any real issue. But hey, at least this thing went out with a smile on its face. From there, Lilith would make her way over to the now split body of her twin. There would be a pause, just before the Cretan would turn towards Asta with a wicked smile, now saying that it was too bad the one he'd gotten was Nama, because thanks to this, they would finally be able to play together as one, as Lilith would then fuse with the corpse and become something far more sinister. The magical power of this being was overwhelming, and at that, it wasn't as if this fusion was a matter of simple addition, as it was more akin to the use of exponents. But you know what, for Asta, ignorance is bliss, because as someone without the ability to sense magical power, it really made no difference to him. But boy, was this thing powerful. They would break through the roof and float upwards. As Asta couldn't sense how great they were, they would now show him. And show they did with a gargantuan ball of devilish magic, one that dwarfed the entirety of the Spade Kingdom. They then say that even if he does in fact survive, all others will die in his place, effectively making up for a lack of physical pain by way of the emotional sort. This sphere of power would continue to grow as it descended downwards, but Asta already knew what needed to be done. And so he'd call upon the first sword and enlarge it to colossal proportions, and again, I'm getting One Piece vibes because of Gear 3rd. But yeah, Asta would straight up have his sword collide with this thing and send it right back to the Fiend, who at this point wasn't smiling. And that was the chapter. This chapter was certainly an epic show of strength. Dialogue was kept to a minimum, while action was cranked up to a 10. And listen, if it weren't for that 5-minute time restraint, it would be hard for me to imagine what can stop this guy now. And like Asta, despite the adversity, despite the constant attacks that put us down and keep us that way, plot armor continues to rise up and refuse to be stopped, and that is largely thanks to the support that you all show us time and time again, so thank you so much. To never miss an upload, Black Clover or otherwise, be sure to subscribe to Plot Armor with notifications on. And if you'd like the same to be the case on Twitter and Instagram, when it comes to all the latest anime and manga news and information, go ahead and follow us at Plot Armor YT. We also have a Patreon page where you can support us even further, which is of course always appreciated. Because when it comes to bringing you some of the best Black Clover content on the platform, Plot Armor has you covered. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.